Awesome. So, hello all. Welcome to Black Girl in the World. If you don't know me, you will. And if you do, welcome back. I am so happy to have you all here. This is the 10th episode special. Yay! This so far has been such an exciting platform to be on. Lately, I have had lots of guests on this podcast here, and I just want to take the time out to say how blessed I am to have so many supporters and speakers in my life to come on here and share their topics. It is truly awesome to have this many topics with people. So today is a good day for this podcast. It is a true entrepreneur has joined me today. I've looked up to this woman for as long as I can remember, knowing what it was like to work in DC to now owning her own business, Comprehensive Grants Management, and providing services to nonprofit organizations. Every year I ask her, Auntie Sita, what is it that you do? But this time I have it on tape so I can remember. Please welcome my auntie twin, Mrs. Sarita Gibbons Means. How are you today, Auntie?
Thank you very much for inviting me to join your podcast. It is such a great privilege and opportunity to be invited for your 10th episode. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so very much.
Of course. I am super excited that you are my special, as it should be, because you honestly are one of my inspirations, and I look up to you so often, and I just hope that you're okay today.
Yes. Um, so your question was, what do I do?
Well, first it was, how are you today?
Oh,
And then the next one would be, what do you do?
okay. Well, I'm pretty good today. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to actually dress up because I don't get to dress up very often. So thank you for that. So you definitely made today special. What
Oh,
I do, I own and manage a grant writing company, and we apply to the federal government to seek funding for mostly public housing authorities, but we do also work with cities and other nonprofits and tribes as well.
okay. Wow, tribes. I never knew that. That's,
Yes.
wow.
Recently won a grant for a tribe in Alaska,
Mhm.
and this grant was supposed to allow them to do a sexual risk avoidance program for
Okay.
their youths between the ages of 10 to 19 years old. So basically just doing a great program to teach the kids abstinence, healthy sexual behaviors, staying away from drugs, educating them about the risk of STDs and also the at-risk factors that leads to premarital sex,
Mhm.
which can also lead to STDs. So that was a great grant to win for the tribe in Alaska. So yeah, we work for tribes.
That's awesome. That's definitely something I didn't know, that you expanded that far into organizations, and to be able to win in not only something that you might be familiar in, but things that you have to educate yourself on to help win that grant for the organization. So that's cool. Um,
Yeah.
what made you gravitate towards grant writing?
I think grant writing kind of gravitated towards me. I don't know that I gravitated towards it really, but in a sense, maybe I did because I was always a reader.
Mm-hmm.
I was always a reader, and for grant writing, you definitely have to be a reader.
Right.
So I've always loved reading, but how it actually technically happened was I graduated from the University of Maryland with my bachelor's in government administration,
Mm-hmm.
and I could not get a job, and I got hired by McDonald's and I was working for McDonald's for $6.50 an hour,
Mm-hmm.
which my sister, Shioni, actually got me that job.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was there, I was working there for almost 4 months, and I was applying everywhere. So this government contracting agency hired me to be a box cutter. So in those days, when someone applied for a grant to the federal government, they had to mail in their grant applications. Now they just hit a button. The way I do it now, I hit a button and it gets delivered, transmitted. But back then, you would have to mail it in. So they would get large, massive amounts of boxes, and they would need people to cut the boxes. So there I was with my 4-year bachelor's degree, and I was just a box cutter. I had a box cutter, and I opened the boxes and took the boxes out and organized the applications in a way that the reviewers could follow to review the applications. So I was there for a little while, and my supervisor left. And then my manager was like, would you like to be the supervisor of the box cutters? So then I did that. And then after a while, a grant reviewer left. And so my supervisor asked me again, would you like to be a grant reviewer? Because I had the educational background and I was always a go-getter anyway. So she saw that in me. Yay for Denise. She's definitely still very much a mentor for me today. She was a great manager. And so I was a reviewer, but when I was a reviewer, I would notice that in the grant applications, they would make a lot of little mistakes. And I would be like, oh, why don't they do this or why don't they do that? But I think because I had that insight of reviewing applications, I kind of knew. So I worked there for 3 years, and then that company did not get their contract renewed, but HUD to continue. So we had to get jobs. I located a job somewhere else, but I thought to myself, I could be a grant writer to help these people to write their applications. So I typed up some letters on my little virus-infected computer from college. This computer was on its last leg. And before I actually typed up my letters, I went to the library and I got a book about how to start a business. And the book said, create a name, create an address, create an email, create a logo, create a business plan, identify your target audience, identify your price list, identify your products. And I sat there and typed up all these things like, I'm gonna have my business. So I typed up some letters and mailed it out to some prospects. And 6 people hired me that first year, and 5, so I submitted 6 grant applications. 5 applications won my first year. So my first year was extremely successful, and each of them got $250,000. So since then, I've been like, oh, wow, I've got something here. So the next year, it just continued until here I am today. And to date, we have won over $100 million for clients.
That is awesome. Aw, are you proud of yourself?
I am. I'm super ambitious, so I am proud of myself, but I always want more. Like there's this insatiable desire, like God put something inside of me that I'm always wanting more. Because I remember your father always reminds me about this. So he said to me that I told him one year, like, all I want is just 20 clients. If I just get 20, because my first year I got 5 clients, because one person hired me to do 2. So my first year I had 5 clients. So I just thought to myself, if I just have 20 clients, I would be set. Last year we had, we submitted hundreds of applications. It was like, more. I need more.
Oh my goodness. Well, that is truly a interesting story when it comes on to how, you reworded the question of it kind of found me. I didn't find it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely interesting to see how you leveled up in such a way where it's like, when I was a kid, I wasn't thinking about this. You probably didn't even know what grant writing was. And I know that a lot of my listeners will, how we see grant writing is not how you see grant writing.
Yes.
Like, grant writing to us is student college grants, all these things. It's like, oh, she's a grant writer, like, can you write me a scholarship?
Mm-hmm.
So
Can you write so that I can start my business, so that
yeah,
I can get some money?
yes,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so much more. It's so many areas of grant writing that you taught me. I didn't see it anywhere else. And to know that, you have housing, you have nonprofit organizations, you have these different places where people are working as grant writers. I thought grants just came out of nowhere, really. To be honest. I really thought the organizations just put out this grant that, hopefully people will apply for it. But I love it. What life lessons did it teach you aside from, you being always on the move, always on the go? I know that's how you are, Rita. So what other life lessons has this job? How did it teach you? Like, what did it teach you?
Well, I have learned a lot of like life lessons along the way, but I guess I probably will talk to you about two most impactful one to me.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not the most impactful, but I guess what I'm thinking about right now. So I remember I did my associate's degree in Jacksonville, Florida, at a historically Black college. So I was there and I was in English class. And so my instructor, she had a trilogy of books about angels battling demons. And we were supposed to write papers on these books. So it wasn't, I didn't really have any issues with the books necessarily. I read, it was a trilogy, so it was 3 books. I read the first one, I read the second one, and by then I was kind of bored with the storyline and the story, so I didn't want to read the third one. So I went to her and I said, can I choose my book? Can I choose a book and just write my paper off of that? So she said, yes. So I went to the library and I found this book by Eleanor Roosevelt. And I don't even know why I chose that book, because this book was like probably 5,000 pages long. This book was dry, boring, but it was about Eleanor Roosevelt's story. Eleanor Roosevelt is Franklin R. Roosevelt's wife.
Mm-hmm.
So he was one of the presidents for the United States. So, and this lady, she was a woman rights leader, and she was definitely a leader in her own right. So she had a great story of her upbringing, meeting her husband, trying to blend, trying to coexist with him and his personality. So this book was dry, but at the same time very insightful. So I wrote my paper on this book. So my teacher, she called me up and she's like, you didn't write this paper. I don't think you wrote this paper. I said, I wrote the paper. She's like, no, not you, not you. She said, so she went through the paper with me and she read a few lines that I had written. And she said, you don't even talk like this. You don't even talk like this. There's no way you could write this. So the funny thing was, I really didn't talk like that, because back then I was like fresh off the boat from
Yeah.
fresh off the boat. Jamaica said like, Iron man, yeah man. I stopped my name Sarita. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
Hatwa was rough. Because actually, I went right after migrating to the United States, I started going to college 4 months later. So this woman met me 4 months after being in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So my accent was, she probably couldn't understand half the things I was saying, but in her mind, she's like, I can't, what I see when I look at you is not what I'm reading. So there's no way you could write this. So me and her battled for a little bit. It even went to the school dean, principal, some things. And so it went higher up. But what I learned from that was I was thinking to myself, assessing the situation one time, and I was like, why does she feel like I didn't write it? I mean, what about me that she thinks that paper couldn't come out of me? Well, the issue was the paper was really good.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh, the paper is too good for her. So what I realized in that is when you know you have something, like all of us have something, all of us were gifted with, so God sent us here with a gift that's unique to us. And that gift that you have, you should not waste any time trying to convince other people that you have that gift inside of you. Because let me tell you why. You don't need to waste any energy on the other person. That book was very hard to read. Like, that book was dry, boring. I mean, I learned a lot about that lady's story, but it was not an easy feat. That book was over like 2,000 pages long, and that paper was hard to write. So I don't have any time. My energy should not be spent trying to convince you. My energy should be in my work, and my work speaks for itself. Like, you weren't convinced that I wrote it, but I wrote it, and I know that I wrote it.
Right.
When she couldn't believe, I'm like, am I that good? Hold on, I'm special. Because
Oh.
people always talk poorly about bad teachers. She did something for me. Like, she really boosted my self-esteem, because she made me realize that I was so good she couldn't even believe it. So in some people will have a bad teacher, and the teacher will say, you're not this, you're not that, and they internalize it and they believe it, rather than like rising to the occasion and say, I'm going to prove to you that I am something special, I am whatever. Or if in my case the teacher didn't believe, like, make sure that you are aware that this is inside of me, this is no mistake, what they don't believe about me is true. So that is a really, really great lesson that she taught me, was that don't waste any time with the unbelievers, because the journey to do what you need to do is so hard. Writing that paper was really hard. So the work is going to be hard. Put your energy in the work and present your work, and let the work speak for itself. No, don't waste any time with the critics. Energy drainers, wasting your time, and you're wasting your time there, and not putting the time and energy in your craft. So that's one lesson, life lesson, that I learned. And almost to a fault, because sometimes people will say, oh, I'm a little detached, I'm a little aloof, I'm a little this, whatever, but I'm so focused on making sure that I do what I am supposed to be doing. I don't have the time to convince you why I shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that, because I'm already struggling to do it. So I
Yeah.
don't need to take my energy off of that. Okay, so the next one is I had a client. Well, I didn't have a client, but I was advertising. And I learned advertising from my mother. My mother was a great, great, great advertiser. Tasheka's grandmother.
Yes.
My mom always had a business. And I didn't even know that I was learning anything. I didn't know at the time, but I think observing her um, made me realize that observing her and the way I am today now made me realize that, oh, she was teaching me business um, skill sets, and I didn't even know at the time. So my mom, she was always selling. She was always selling something.
Yes.
She was always advertising too, and she always had a product. And I remember when she was working at the flea market, and she would cook food and take to the flea market. And so she would go to the flea market Saturday and Sunday. And mom would leave out with the food Saturday, come back, nothing sell. You open the pot, it hasn't been touched.
I know.
So this lady is back out there. They're like, where are you going? You're not defeated. So she basically taught me, like, you have to be out there in the marketplace. Don't waste the time with the people who don't buy. Go back out there looking for the person that is buying. So I would always advertise, and um, I was writing grants. I was writing grants, moonlighting at night because I had a full-time job, but I was moonlighting at night. But when I got married to Mike, and Mike is in the military, we got shipped to Hawaii. So I had to give up my job, and then I thought, oh God, I have to. Now I'm gonna just launch this business full time. And I would be advertising, people would turn me down. But back then, when people, rejection still hurts, but back then, it would really pierce me. Like when they said no to me, it was like they were saying no to my innermost soul. Like it was so personal.
Right.
And this man taught me a great lesson. So he called me up. He's an executive director for Housing Authority in New York. His name is Robert Landry, and I don't even know if he knows this story. He calls me up and he says, you know, you advertised to me 3 years ago, but I wasn't ready then, but now I'm ready to hire you. I'm like, I advertised to you 3 years ago? He's like, yeah, and now I'm ready.
Oh my goodness. Were you constantly
I was constantly
okay.
advertising. But he remembered, the first time I contacted him was 3 years ago. He wanted to, but he wasn't ready for whatever reason. You'll reach out to an organization, they're not ready. They're probably a newly hired person.
Right.
Probably lost some members of their team. They probably don't have funding. They probably don't have the time. They probably have personal issues they can't take. They don't have the mindset to do it, but the interest is there. So what you need to do, which is what my mom taught me, is that you need to be at the flea market with your food when they're hungry.
I
That's
I agree.
that's when you're there. So when they pass you back and forward Saturday and Sunday and they don't buy, they see you. They're just not ready to buy yet. But because you're constantly there, when they're hungry, they're gonna come to you because they know that lady's there with her pot of food every Saturday, every Sunday. So now that my belly is grumbling, I need some food, I need to go over there. So that's what that taught me, was when he said 3 years ago, I kept in his face. I would constantly advertise to him year after year after year after year. This is available. Do you want it? This is available. This money is available. Are you going to apply? This money is available and you're eligible for it. Give it a chance. And I just kept at him. 3 years later, he called me up. That blew my mind because I took these rejections so personal. He had other issues why he didn't hire me. It had nothing to do with me. It was, and maybe it will have something to do with you, but that's not even the point, because the ones who don't like you isn't even your issue, because the one who do like you, they passed other people that they didn't like to get to you. So everybody will get their share. Just make sure that you get the share that you want and work for it. So that life lesson was just that don't waste any time on the rejections. You're going to get rejected. That's you're going to get rejected. There is no doubt about it.
Right.
But what you do is stay consistent, stay persistent, stay visible so that they can see you, so that when they are ready, they know where to find you. Put out your podcast whenever you have decided based on your plans that you need to put out your podcast, so that they know that this podcast is coming out and this is a way for me to get educated, get insight, get information. And so they know it's there, and you should always have it there. Don't have them want to listen to a podcast and you didn't do it that week and you don't have any podcasts to give them. You have to be in the flea market every Saturday, every Sunday when it's open, so that when they're hungry, they know to come to you for food.
That's a sweet guy. You are always sharing such a positive light when it comes on to feeling like feeling like you're not seen enough when you have your business, when you're doing your work, you know what I mean? When you're doing your homework, you feel like your parents aren't seeing you enough, but you're always going to have one person that sees you. And that reminds you that, hey, you're doing good. Keep on doing it. And you've always been that person to remind me and remind others that I see you doing your stuff. Just keep on doing it. Because if you stop, then that's where you feel like you failed yourself.
Yeah, very, very, very true. And sometimes when the person isn't seeing you, they're not seeing you because they're looking at something. They're not seeing you because they're looking at something in that moment. Not that you're not important. I remember I had a friend and she called me and I knew she called me. I saw the missed call, but I didn't call her back. So I didn't call her back immediately. I probably called her back a few days later. So when I called her back a few days later, she says, I was calling you, like she said, I called you 4 days ago or 5 days ago, whatever. I said, yeah, I know. I was doing something. Do you think I was floating on a cloud? If you don't see me, I'm working out, I'm washing dishes, I'm taking my car like there's things that I have to do. You're important to me, but believe me, I am doing other things. So not to say if it's not an emergency or something like that. If it's an emergency, leave a message, that's an emergency. Send a text, this is an emergency. But if it's a call to chit chat and whatever, I am doing something. So don't put that pressure, people shouldn't put a pressure on the relationship that the person has to be a certain way for you. And my nephew Andre taught me that lesson because, as you know, our nephew, your cousin, he's autistic. And he will, well, the way it is now, way medicine is now, he will not be something that he will not be able to function the way like a normal person would be able to function. He won't be independent as of now. If science change, if medicine change, definitely he will be able to be independent, but he will not be independent right now. He will always be dependent as of right now.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself about him, assessing him one time, and I thought to myself, when we have people in our lives and we're making demands on them, we don't realize that they're limited in their own way. They probably don't have a huge disability that you can recognize called autism, but they have a disability. They also have patience issues or time management issues or anger management issues or issues with whatever they're battling or trying to overcome, don't make that demand on them. That it would be like making a demand on Andre that in, instead of being autistic and being dependent on me all the time, be independent. How are you going to come to me to say, I should tell you a joke? I'm not a funny person. I'm not. How are you going to come to me and say these things that are not innate to my personality and the way I was made? Don't make that demand on people. Help them to be the fullest version of themselves. Don't make that demand on them because you wouldn't like for them to make these demands on you that are outside of your way of being. So when the person isn't seeing you in that moment, if you desperately need their attention, obviously you can let them know. But if you just need to be noticed, they may be in their world because they're battling depression, they're battling an illness, they're battling some insecurities, they're battling some issues at work, some issues with just they're living life too.
Yeah.
You know, the broken planet that we're on, nothing is working right here. Nothing. So if you have somebody that you need more from, I mean, literally, the fact that you even have somebody, you're you're probably already winning.
Oh. Well, Auntie Sarita, I know that this is honestly like the one of the best topics I could ask for, especially from you. I do have to cut this a little bit short because one, we have some meetings to attend to, and two, I would love to make this a two-part special.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's a surprise. It's a surprise because I don't want to cut this 10th episode short, and we have so many other things to talk about, so many other things I know my listeners are going to want to hear from you. So, I cannot
Well,
wait for that.
I would be honored to be on a part two. I'm definitely a fan of yours. You're the first grand in the family and the first for all of us, and you have not disappointed. You have such a gentle spirit, such a kind heart. I mean, the qualities that you possess, and they're natural qualities, I wish I had those naturally. Like just your depth of you have a very gentle way about you. Me, I'm more like I'm gonna get it done. Nothing is gonna be in my way. I'm gonna roll over you. Because I am so like I am very goal oriented.
Mhm.
Focused. You said you had to cut it short. I was talking to my husband the other day, and I was complimenting him about how easygoing he is
Yeah.
because he plays in this island game. He goes and trains for island games. He does all the activities, and I said my personality could not work like that. I could not go every weekend to train on the activities. Me, how I would think is I have a championship or I have an island game competition
Yeah.
and I'm doing these activities every weekend to win at that competition. But the way he is made, I am in such admiration of this guy. The way he's made, he does things for the joy of doing them. I don't do things for the joy of doing them. There must be a goal at the end. And I think that's why grant writing works for me very well is it has a deadline. It just doesn't go on and on and on and on. I get tired like I need to know where the end is so we can be finished.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I admire that in you. You have such a great gentle spirit, very loving, very affectionate, very complimentary. Even on your podcast, wanting to put value into the world to offer regular people's perspective on the world, um, that's a great quality. I think it's going to be a success. Keep on doing it. All you have to do is just be there, and it will resonate with the people who it needs to resonate, and you will bring value to the people who you need to bring value to, and it will be a success in that way. All you need to do is just keep on doing it. So please don't stop.
I will try not to. Not for I'm trying my best. And I'm so grateful and so happy to have you on here. And I hope that you can be a reoccurring guest for me because I would love
Reoccurring? You said part two, now it's a reoccurring?
no, I'm speaking for the future. So I cannot wait. Please tell the listeners where they should find you and
Well, if you're a housing authority, if you're a tribe, federally recognized Indian tribe, if you're a city, please contact Sarita at comprehensivegrants.com to find out what type of grant applications are, what type of grant funding are available for you. Because there's tons of money out there for you to operate your agency, get money, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars to do the things that you need to do. And maybe you're not aware of it. So contact Sarita, Cereta, at comprehensivegrants.com. Thank you, Tasheka.
of course, Auntie Senorita. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. There will be a part two. I will not fake it. There will be a part two. And thank you so much again, Auntie Senorita, for being on here. Tell Fee I said hi. Tell Uncle Mike I said hello. And I love you guys very much.
Mwah.
All right. Bye.
Bye.